Welcome, BBCs, to episode number 127 on the Broken by Concept #1 League of Legends solo queue improvement podcast, Preseason. Preseason. We've talked about some changes over the last couple of episodes. We've done reflections on our last year. This is an important time, guys. And I've had lots of mixed messages from my Soul 2 community. Some people are playing a lot, they're loving it. Some people are like, let's sit back, relax, and enjoy the show. How are we going to use it? How about we start with how we're using it, Curtis? So what's our plan of attack? All right, so it's really simple. For you, you're just going to learn Yone.
Yep, learning Yone. That's it. Very simple.
You're adding one champion, and this champion specifically for you feels like it rounds out your entire pool really well.
Well, it actually kills two birds with one stone. Number one, I have a pretty big mental block with Yone, like versing Yone. And I think that's going to help me deal with versing Yone better in the future. And number two, it actually allows me to verse matchups that I currently didn't have a reliable answer to. For example, if someone picked Victor into me, I didn't have an answer. I didn't really have a reliable, solid AD pick. And I also didn't really have a reliable, solid pick into Silas in its current form. I did have Cassio, but I just wasn't really. I mean, I still play it every now and then, but just with the way the D shield interacted, it wasn't reliable enough for me. So, yeah, it's been going well so far. I think I'm like 30-ish games deep. Been getting helped a lot by Mysterious and Ajax and some other Yone players, which has been going great, and I'm having a blast. It's very tricky, but I'm having a lot of fun.
Do you think that by the time the preseason ends, you're going to be very proficient on the champion? You can see it. You're pretty close.
Yeah, I mean, for me, this has probably been the most efficient learning journey out of any champion I've ever learned. This was actually faster than Cassio in a way because I've just had such great guidance.
Okay.
Because Ajax, he was like a Yone challenger player. He took a break, so he's not challenger right now, but he was before he kind of took that break. He has been giving me great advice with matchup understanding. He's been watching my VODs with me. Like a lot of the time, I stream my solo queue in the Discord. He just comes in and he'll give me advice on like, oh, you're rushing your abilities. You're not juicing the value of your E. You should hold your ult more, or you should hold your E more. He's just giving me very specific things to look for, because my biggest difficulty before learning Yone was I didn't know how to fundamentally approach the champion, and combined with Tim's mindset breakthroughs with Yone and his like framework thinking about the champion, it's been very quick. So even though I'm 30 games in, I would say I'm equivalent on other champs maybe 60, 70 games in.
Wow, because you've just been able to speed it up instead of you going through having to figure out yourself.
Every game, I feel like I'm getting like a shit ton of learning.
Yep.
And I'm actually surprised. Yone, for me, mechanically, has never been that much of an issue. It's more like, how do I think and how do I team fight? How do I skirmish? How do I approach the game like at a mindset level? And what does the macro look like? Because he's basically no utility. He's pure damage. And that's very different to a lot of my champions.
Yeah, how to win a game like that.
How do I win a game? How do I be thinking? How do I approach fights? That's been the hardest thing. And adapting the way you approach fights based off build. Like going crit build is more burst centric versus like having like maybe balk into a tank item or whatever. Like I didn't know how to think of builds with Yone as well. So this has all been streamlined through the help of the MLA community so far. So I'm having a blast and I'm having fun. I'm having a lot of fun going down this journey. So that's I think by season, I mean, I think even in the next 2 weeks, I'll have it ready to go. A level to play at like a pretty high level.
So obviously we're both playing on alternate accounts.
Yep.
Partly because the queue times are ridiculously high in OS at the moment. Like challenger queue times are literally 50 minutes during the day. Control. So what I'm doing is I am adjusting to the new jungle changes with my current pool. So Rek'Sai, Jarvan,
Xin
and Elise is what I'm revisiting. I don't actually know what I'm going to do with Xin.
So is this kind of like the champ pool cycling thing where you have your core as like the Rek'Sai, Jarvan?
Yeah. And
then you kind of have like those maybe...
I don't know where Volibear sits in as well, because the new tank items, I have lots of things to do. So I'm revisiting Zinzao and Elise. I'm learning how to hit EQs on Jarvan because my EQ usage is really bad. Rek'Sai, I'm learning him on the current, patch, the new jungle changes. And then I'm figuring out. I need to. That's on the to-do list. I need to figure out the Volibear tank items for him.
So the tank items, it's interesting because
Heartseeker seems like the way to go.
Heartseekers feels really nice, just from a feel. Like I'm very feel oriented with items. It feels good. A lot of people hate on Juk Show as an item, but I don't know. I don't mind it. I think if you feel like fight's going to be extended.
Is that the one that looks like a spear, or is it the?
It's the one that looks like a. It's like a purple one.
Oh,
it's
the
like a
purple
mask.
one.
Yeah, that one.
Yeah.
It's good if you're staying in combat because you get like the stacks up and you get like pretty tanky, and it gives armor and MR, which is good comparatively to the Frostfire. Frostfire doesn't feel.
Yeah, so that's
good.
what I'm thinking about building that on Volibear, but it's weird
When you need
build
armor.
Sheen.
It feels. I mean, I'm only talking of it through a Yone lens, but like the feeling of it doesn't feel as good as it used to feel. Like
The
it
build
used to.
paths for the tank items are really interesting, aren't they? They're not,
Yeah.
They're not really value.
I mean, a lot of them,
building
you
the
get a lot of
components.
ability haste on all of them, which is great. Right? You get Kindle
Yeah,
Gem
'cause Kindle
and
Gems and
stuff, which is
everything.
great. I love that.
It's weird though as a jungler though, coming out of base with a Kindle Gem.
Isn't that good? Kindle Gem's one of the best components, isn't it? Because you get ability haste. But I don't know how valuable ability haste is for
Because
you,
it
right?
doesn't really help you clear your jungle that much faster,
Right.
you know? And it's like in skirmishes, it's like, yeah, cool, I got some ability plays, got some extra,
Right.
HP, but HP in early game skirmishes, like, usually you're just going to kill them or not, you know what I mean? So it's really weird to
Yeah, I
come
don't
out of
know.
base.
How does Rek'Sai get affected out of interest from the jungle changes?
Well, I mean, I've just been playing jungle the way I've been playing jungle normally.
And has that changed anything?
I
I mean,
we're
the
still
scuttle
early
changes, like...
It's still the same, dude. It's just jungle
Yeah, I mean, that's what I'm
fundamentals.
thinking. Like, how do the jungle fundamentals actually change? Minus with your champ specifically, it's not like you were pulling multiple camps. It's not like you're
No.
playing something like a fiddle or something.
No.
It's not like, I mean, for you, it was more about looking at lane states and identifying what a good gank and a bad gank looks like.
Putting out pressure.
Maybe, I guess, adapting, maybe certain jungle champs pathing have changed a little bit, right? Because most people want to start red now than blue. Maybe that's changed, but it seems like for the most part, very little's changed.
It's just, I think it's a feel with the camps. It's just a feel thing.
And Krug's being way faster and
Yeah,
stuff.
that's
Even
so
doing
cool.
my, still to this day,
I
doing my
love
head
that.
in.
Yeah.
Because you do the big Krug and then it just like disappears.
You're like, wait, where's the other two?
Yeah,
big
where's the
ones?
other ones? It's such a big difference, the Krugs, how
It is,
fast it
it's
takes to
exciting.
finish that camp.
Yeah, mate, the counter jungling thing, because it's harder to counter jungle, is an interesting thing. Again, in the specific situations that I get into, it's like, you know, I have plenty of time to take the camp anyway. Like, we're
Right.
just in a trade sides map situation. Like, it's not like I need to quickly get it and get out. Like, those are usually not really
And
good.
none of your champions really struggle with
situations.
doing scuttle, with breaking the shield anyway.
The shield, there was no shield anymore.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying on the
Oh,
previous
yeah,
patch.
yeah,
Like
that's right.
all of your champs had CC anyway,
It's a
like
shield.
Volibear and
Yeah.
Rek'Sai and stuff.
Yeah.
So it didn't really matter.
Yeah. So yeah, I think that like you, I think it will be very quick. I think in a couple of weeks I'll be.
So
good
once
to
you get
go.
a hang of the items, is basically that's it.
Yep. But yeah, I need to figure out my pool again. At least, you know, comes and goes. I can't hit. My mechanics really need a lot of work, dude. That's
With Elite specifically.
even Jarvan. Didn't we play I played a Jarvan game. I missed a lot of EQs, dude. That game that we played.
I don't remember. I'm just focusing on myself right
You're
now.
focusing yourself, and I missed a lot of kills that game. Like it was bad. So I need to learn how to hit EQs on Jarvan, Elise, and then Xin Zhao scares me a bit because the whole Ravenous Hydra item is so
Yeah,
good right
that
now.
item
it's
is
sort of like
very-
making champs better than maybe they actually
Agreed.
are. You
That
know?
has to be changed.
It will.
It has to be.
At the end of the day, if you're what I've seen it being built on assassins like Kha'Zix and stuff like that, I'm pretty sure if Riot see assassins build this item, they're going to be like, all right, let's get rid of that. I don't think they want that.
Okay, so I'm learning a champion. You're kind of you're adapting to
Adapting
the
to
new
new
patch.
changes. Even there's another patch next week where they're changing the experience a bit on the camps. So I think it's more experience. I think it is more experience. So that's going to be another change. So Riot are really in the rapid phase of, you know, assessing the G's jungle changes because they're really big. So I'm going to have to make maybe adjustments again.
So okay, so now for the general, more holistically, say for the Soul 2 and MLA community or the wider league community, what are ways we can use the preseason? So what have you been recommending to people in the Soul 2 out of interest?
All right, so this is the biggest thing in terms of the way people are playing and the games that they get in. This is the biggest complaint that I'm seeing. Nathan, people are not trying. People are locking random champs. They're really scared to queue up. Obviously, you know, the rank still matters in terms of like your MMR and stuff
yeah.
like that. So, you know, there's still effects the next season. But lots of people, it seem like they don't really care about it that much. I say you've got to still just play, and just who cares about the chaos? Like, I literally have been in over the last couple of days. I have, like, there's no real League of Legends fundamentals macro going on. Like, I'm literally talking about 100 kills at like 30 minutes.
Yeah, every game's pretty
like
chaotic.
20, 30 kills at like 10. I literally had 30 kills. I was 16 to 14 at 10 minutes. Like, we're just skirmishing, but that's fine. Like, let's just get into it. Let's just have a feel. Let's just play the game. You know, don't get all trapped in your ego saying like, oh, this is the way League of Legends should be played, or like, just have a crack, have fun, get experiment. And, you know, you might think because people think they're wasting time. I say this a lot. This is one of my mantras. In League, it's part of the journey. You have to waste time to get good at League of Legends.
Well, according to my video that I put out with intuition, you know, as long as you're playing with intensity, there is no real wasted time.
Their view of people's,
because your intuition does improve.
It does improve. Yeah.
Now, I would frame it a different way. The way I would frame this is like, I think it's important to have a framework to think about your preseason. Okay, so I'm going to kind of give buckets. So really categorize into buckets. You either tried incredibly hard during the season and towards the end of the season, which you need to genuinely take a break. There are people that just need a month or two off. They want to do a full reset. I would say I don't really recommend that because it takes a while to recalibrate and get back into the game in January when the season starts. But there are people that need that break. Listen to yourself. So there's that. Number two, developing your champ pool. This is a very, very good time to expand your champion pool, exactly like I am, and get your pool sorted. So when the season rolls around in January, you're ready to go. You know exactly, you got this well-rounded pool. Boom, boom, boom. Or you already have your champ pool sorted.
Going back onto that point, that's really important to be ready to go, because then you're not chasing things. So, because think about the way that the meta changes, and maybe, you know, you talk about, you know, rotating champions in the pool. If you're like struggling to like figure it out, it takes you like a month to figure it out, and then suddenly the new patches have come, and then you're always behind, and I feel like that you don't have momentum.
Yeah, I actually made that mistake last preseason where I didn't have momentum because my Cassio, I didn't really have a well-rounded pool, and then I was playing catch-up for months actually. Before it took me like 4 months, 5 months to get back into it.
Versus play a lot in the preseason, have a crack, lose a lot of games, who cares, play with trolls, whatever. Season comes over, everyone's suddenly trying again. And then I have a feel for everything, and again, then I'm just like slowly. And you're
maximizing the amount of months that you have to get the rank that you want to get.
Yeah.
So following on from that champ pool, and then let's say you actually have your champ pool already sorted. You don't want to make any changes to your pool. Have learning objectives still. It's not like the game is...
No,
like
the game's still the same.
The game's still the same. You can still genuinely get better at the game with learning objectives.
When I die, I'm missing information again. You know, it's the same deaths, really. That's what I said. Someone said in Soul 2. It's like, you know, what do we learn? It's like, well, I'm reviewing my games and I'm still making the same mistakes.
All of my deaths are the same thing. It's like, I'm not playing in accordance with my jungle's location, or my threat assessment is off, or whatever the hell it might be. I'm not adapting to the chaos, using Cupcake's ace mentality, embracing reality. Or, so we've done all that. The fourth one being, okay... I've got my pool sorted. I'm getting games and whatever. But I actually want to improve. The two more is improve my mindset and relationship with the game. I'll expand on this one. So I've been running these preseason sessions in the MLA, right? And the way I structured it was that there are 3 fundamental problems. You either have a problem with your pool and you want to use the preseason to fix your pool. You want to fix your gameplay, or we want to talk about mindset and like relationship with the game and process. There are many, many people that need to use this next 1 to 2 months to fix their process, learn how to review, and have a healthier relationship with the game, ready to go when the season starts. So I've been doing a lot of these over the past few weeks, and I'll give you some examples of things that I've been having to work through. Things like I wasn't really reviewing. I was like fake reviewing, or all that stuff, right? Fake reviewing, not really giving attention to my reviews, only looking at like the first death or things like that. Being inconsistent with my games, playing a lot one week and then giving up, barely playing the next week. Tilting after one mistake. Making a mistake in the early game and giving up. That's like the El Clasico that you had to deal with a lot.
The end of review process hurts that a lot.
Having toxic expectation with my teammates. So if my teammate make a mistake, then I now tunneling on that and I can't express my best self.
That's a really big one. That's escalated in the preseason because you're playing with quote unquote people that aren't trying properly.
So these are just examples, right? And so what I've been saying to a lot of people is that you need to use this next 1 month to create a process to now we can start tackling these narratives directly. Now, one of the biggest ones has been it's actually teaching people to review. So I actually wrote a whole article on how to review and really the different frameworks of review. But the other one, which was fascinating, is process and not having a sustainable process. So the word I've been using, the theme of this last month, is sustainable. You must have a process that you deem to be sustainable throughout the entire year. There is no point trying super hard for 2 months and then burning out because you don't get results that way. So I said to someone, okay, this is an example. You could theoretically right now, with all the time off, do 3 blocks of 3 with pretty sophisticated, intense reviews in between each game. Or what you can do, you do your 2 blocks a day instead, and we'll have a very specific things to look for in the review and manage your review in a much more sustainable way, such that you can do this for the next 6 to 8 months. There is no way you're going to sustain 3 blocks of 3 for the next 3 months. It's not sustainable. You're going to burn out. Then you're going to have a hissy fit and not review anymore. And then we're going to go back to square one because you're just going to tilt queue at some point. So let's create and even if you're playing less games, even if you don't feel like you're pushing yourself, that is okay. Sustainable is the key.
Even when I say that preseason is really important, like if you just play like a couple of games a day, even like 2 games, 2-3 games a day, every day chipping away, that adds up.
Yes.
It does add up. Dude, if you're doing that and no one else is doing that,
you don't have to
2
play
months,
bulk insane amount of games.
No, just have a feel for the game. And again, you won't be playing catch up when the season starts because you have a feel for the items. You'll see tank items. You'll know what champions are good or not. You'll get used to the new jungle path in. It's really important.
So this is an opportunity for everyone out there to be honest with yourself. Okay, like reflect on your year. Like what did I fail on completely? What is one aspect of my process or what is one aspect of my year that I completely and utterly failed on?
Yep.
And how can I isolate and work on that in the preseason? Could be anything. Could range from your process, your champ pool, your gameplay. Pick one thing. Tying back to the process, this is something I've been dabbling with. So there are a few people in the MLA that really, really struggle with process. So basically, they just can't get themselves.
Is that because they have too much time on their hands?
Typically,
I found the people that struggle with process, they just have so much time.
Well, it's probably a range of things. There's too much time, but I would say they just can't focus. Like they just make excuses for like not reviewing and they can't stick to something. They can start something, but they can't stick to something. They will say, oh yeah, I'll do a review, but then I'll get sloppy after I get on a win streak or something, right?
Yeah.
And what I've been saying I gave him a contract. And I said, okay, we're starting this on say like the 16th of November. And then I'm going to check back in and we're going to agree that for 1 month, the 16th of December. Over this 1 month, we're going to write an agreement and you're going to say, okay, we're going to set a minimum amount of 3 blocks. We're going to give you a basic minimum review requirement, which is I want you to review the first 2 to 3 deaths of every game. Or it could be, I want you to look at the first 2 pivotal moments of every game. And you're only going to stick to this champ pool and you're never going to play more than this amount of blocks a week. And you're going to do these reviews in between each game. And so it's
extremely structured.
So what this contract is though, it has to be something that you believe is achievable, not too hard, but not too easy. So that's why the reviews are going to be very like streamlined. And it's not a mass amount of games, but enough to like that you're getting games in. And the point of this for these people is that they need to get their journey kickstarted in a way. Because it's like when you first go to the gym, you have to suffer for the first 3 to 4 weeks.
Be uncomfortable, build the muscle memory.
That's right.
Build the routine.
If you don't know what it feels like to do a process for 3 to 4 weeks, then it's going to be very hard for you to feel incentivized to just do it in the first place. Like you need to try it for 3 to 4 weeks. And what I've found with these people is that they actually feel better knowing that they don't have to do it forever. Because it's like, if you lock them in for a month, it's like, oh, it's only a month. Like I can do that for a month. But if I say, okay, we're going to do this process and I don't give an end date, they immediately get very overwhelmed. And it's like, it's too much.
It's like a trick for your brain as well, right? Because let's say if you just show up for the month, then suddenly you know what it feels like. You have some ideas about ways to change it, and then you just get locked in.
That's right. That's why that's my goal with a lot of these clients.
Gym analogy is so good as well, because gym would be so scary for me if I had to go in there and then suddenly I had to lift, like I had expectations to lift weights and I failed those expectations. Like the biggest thing for me when I was first started going to the gym was just showing up,
show up, yeah.
and just do really shitty form, really shitty exercises, get the hour done, and then just rinse and repeat. But then over time, you start to learn, and then it becomes easy to do good form, and it becomes, you're starting to lift more weights.
And while you're there, you might as well do good form.
Yeah. You just like trick yourself, but you just have to get into that routine.
You have to get that first 3-4 weeks out of the way.
Yeah.
And so this is my little experiment I'm trying with these people. I'm going to see how this month goes for a lot of them. They're going to check back in, and we'll see what happens.
Yeah.
Which I'm very intrigued with.
Is it like a physical? Do you like write the things down?
What I told I told them to write me a Google Doc.
Love it.
The start date, end date.
Yeah.
And I said, come back to me at this date, and we're going to see where you failed, what worked well, what did it feel like, what's sustainable, what's unsustainable, where did you struggle, and then we can get specific from there, because it's kind of like reviewing the process then in a way, which will be really interesting.
Because with reviews as well, people are so intimidated with reviews because they think that they're missing so much, or like they're not good at it, so they just give up because they don't try, they don't start. It's the same thing with like lifting heavy weights or not following the YouTube video of some guys doing perfect form.
So Nathan,
you just gotta do shitty reviews, or just have a crack, just look at some deaths.
We need to get very specific on, like, I feel like this year for us, I want to go really deep on reviewing narratives. So I had someone in the MLA named Ben.
Yeah, I like it.
He reached out to me, said, Curtis, I wrote this article about all the different ways of reviewing. So I wrote very specifically, these are the different frameworks. This is how you can go about reviews, whatever. And he said, Curtis, this is great information, but what you haven't addressed was that there are a lot of people out there that actually have reviewing mental blocks. And so an example of reviewing mental block would be, I'm ashamed to look at my own mistakes.
Yep.
I can't actually look at my
I don't want to see reality.
And I resonate with that. I remember back in the day, I used to hate watching my own gameplay because I felt like it attacked my ego and it attacked my self-confidence. Because again, my self-confidence was attached to my self-worth was attached to my rank and my performance in game. Another ones were like, let's see if I can find it. He actually wrote me a bit of a DM here. Give me one sec. And anyway, I remember reading this and I'm like, that's a really good point. This is something that I haven't expanded on before.
Because it's really intimidating, especially people come to the review sessions and stuff, and because I'm so quick and like I know what to look for, it looks easy, right? And then they do it, and then it doesn't look the same as what I did the review with them, and they're like, I just got to go to Nathan's review sessions. But no, dude, like it takes a lot of time. But review the things that I want to get to. The point. This is what it takes me years. I want reviews to be quick and fun and standardized.
Yeah,
and it's important to have high standards in the review because, again, if you actually have low standards in a review, that is the 30-minute review session. You're looking at all these things.
Well,
you're not cutting things off.
That's a double-edged sword, because what he said as well, what he struggled with was glossing over things because it's embarrassing and just quickly ending the review. So end of review is a great tool, right? Because you don't want to overcomplicate things, and it focusing on the early game
makes it quick.
But in a way, right? Sometimes you can make a mistake, but there are many other learnings. And for example, like what he said here is like, I knew Elise was going to 3 camp, but ended up pushing, forgot to ward, stupid death, and then like you kind of like the end of review is kind of preventing you from really getting into the details of that specific mistake. It's like, oh, yeah, this is a bad mistake, end of review, and you just kind of move on rather than like truly breaking down this mistake and really get into it and maybe even finding a little bit more after that. Like, I feel like the end of review process.
So you're saying people can just use it, just gloss over. It's like, oh, that's the moment, and
that's an end of review.
Ignore it. It's like, oh, that won't happen again.
Yeah, like that. Like that won't happen
like,
again. That's right.
Okay, I'm not thinking about these things.
Why did it happen? Fundamentally,
what did I miss?
What was I thinking? Yeah. Why did this happen? What did I not fundamentally understand about this? Where would I have to direct my attention next time? Another one he said was can be not review when actually improving or on a win streak. When something clicks or you get lucky and start having really good games like 6-0, 8-1, etc., it can be really easy to think you have things figured out and there's not much to get from the review.
It's all uphill from there.
Dude, I love my favorite reviews are the ones where I just say I got lucky. Like, I love reviewing games and just pointing out things that either I did or a client did that were just unsustainable. That's and just completely coin flip. Like I looked at, I've done heaps of reviews recently where like people bring in games they did well. And I'm like, I was in Aurelia and I'm like, you just got lucky. Like, you just got lucky the jungler wasn't here. I'm like, how do you know the jungler's not here? Or I did a client this morning where he was playing Silas. He roamed topside into this very 50-50 roam. He had no idea where the jungler was. The jungler could have easily counter-ganked. He just got it, and then the jungler just happened to be on the other side of the map. I'm like, did you know that? Did you know where that Lee Sin was? No. It's a terrible roam.
Right.
If you don't have that information, you cannot make that play.
Yep.
And so I love calling out this because this shatters people's, like, they think that they can only learn from like hardcore deaths and mistakes. If you shift your mindset, like, was this actually... Is this replicable?
If this went well and it actually wasn't replicable, there's so much to learn in a situation like that.
That's high level reviewing. That's a high level review. But my point being is that I'm sure there are many narratives that are present in people that prevent people from being able to get into the review. Like, I could give them a framework. I could even tell them what to look for, how to look for it, how to break it down. But still, they still struggle.
Yeah.
So what I want to do with you this year is like, really, what are those? Because I feel like me and you are very detached from this. We just want to find the truth. Sure, if you have that mindset and your ego is attached and you're just getting into the details and want to, like, you're just super curious, it's very hard to resonate or understand what would be holding you back. It's kind of like you don't know what you don't know. So this is where we need information from the community. And I think we need to ask this question more. And I feel like I've been guilty of giving a learning objective and read this article, and then, like, I don't go any further than that. Like, I feel like I should also ask, do you have any difficulties reviewing? Have you thought about narratives that you have in your reviews? Or, just making them more of a big deal, because I think it's actually massive, like really, really big. It's theoretically part of the process. It's a huge part of the process.
Absolutely.
So... anything else about preseason?
So you're going through a list and you went on the tangent of the whole learning the relationship with the game tied with their polishing up their own review process.
Yep. I've been going over so many mental blocks from clients. It's unbelievable. I would say the most common one, because there's so many, I'll just kind of maybe pick a few to highlight here. I would say expectations of teammates and expectations of self, like being delusional about what you're capable of, is a very, very common one. Beating yourself up after making a mistake. And I feel like a lot of this, I've been, again, tying everything back to the blank canvas analogy. I keep using it. I say, if you are truly embracing that League is a game where you can express who you are on the Rift, and it's about you and your journey, and it's about you expressing what your Silas looks like on the Rift. No one is going to play Silas like you. Even if it's messy and you're making fucking mistakes, it looks terrible, it's still you and your Silas, and it doesn't mean you're not improving at it. At the end, there's a painting.
That's
right?
the key thing. You can make another painting.
Yes,
that's not the
infinite
end.
amount of canvases there.
It's not the end.
It's not the end. And it's like, we look at it. So what we could do better? Pick one thing, move on.
That's such a hard mindset, Curtis, because of the culture of gaming and going back to leagues. Either you're good or you're bad. There's no in between, and there's no such thing as getting improving.
The fun aspect of things has single-handedly changed the game for many of my clients, though. Like the emphasis on fun. What makes the journey? What makes League fun for you? That's a question I always ask now. Like,
Absolutely.
What do you want to get out of your experience? Like, you're booting up the game. Why are you playing? What makes it fun? Why do you play this champ? What makes it fun? And really, like, embracing that. And I feel like, the other thing as well, this is another little tidbit I've been giving. Nathan, when you play a lot of League, we identify ourselves, and I'm sure many people of this podcast, as a League player, solo queue player. That's, we have titles in our life of the things that we do. So if you're a gym goer, right? Maybe you love rock climbing. You're a rock climber. You're a League. You play League. You're a League player, solo queue player. Sometimes when you're very obsessed about a hobby or a passion, and especially with League, it's a very, obviously, an emotional thing and can get very intense. We kind of think of ourselves only as a League player. It's like, I am a League player and that is my identity. And you shape your entire identity around this whole thing about a League player. And there's a lot of people in the community, they just obsess over League to the degree where they can't function and they can't see themselves as an actual person. I said to some guy, hold up, right? Let's just pause here. you are not just a league player, right? You are many things. You are, in his case, he was actually a father. He had a daughter. You're a friend to some people. You're a colleague to other people. You are a son. You are a partner, a husband in his case. And when you get perspective, because we get so tunneled in.
You get tunneled in.
It's like we get so tunneled in. This game, this is it. It's make or break it. I have to improve right now. It's like we get so tunneled in. I'm like, let's just zoom out for a second. This is not life and death. This is a hobby. This is something that we're passionate about, sure. But we don't need to get results this minute, this day, this week. League's not going fucking anywhere. No. Let's just get some perspective here. We're just trying to get slightly better league player.
Just slightly chip away at it.
And just get, and I've been really liking this way of framing it. You're a friend, you're a partner, you're a father, you're a brother, whatever it might be. And give him, it's like,
you're not like Jerry, the Platinum 3 Diana player that has to win that game.
I feel like we just lose perspective sometimes. And I think giving people that perspective was really, I think really helpful for certain people, even though it sounds kind of basic, but we forget.
It is easy to forget. That actually ties really well into my next topic. So that's about perspective in terms of like pressure expectations. Yeah. I have one about, just not having fun, or like League is a game that can feel or look like the worst game ever very quickly. It can go from the best game. It's like high highs and low lows.
It doesn't have to be, but it can be.
Yeah. This is a one of my Soul 2 members here. This is a conversation. He goes, anyone else feel like this patch took all the fun out of the game? I feel like Jungle has to accomplish even more than before, then the pressure is immense. And I said, so far, jungling's still jungling to me. You know, fundamentals, good gank, bad gank, got to control objectives, mid-game, playing around strong win conditions. And I said, what exactly do you feel you need to accomplish? And I said, I make the exact same game losing mistakes as I would have last season. And he goes, I feel like the clearing is so easy that junglers don't have as many meaningful choices. The gank opportunities are so plentiful that both junglers are just going to get off a pile of successful ganks. I've only played like 10 or so normal games so far in the new patch. So far from a fair sample size. I just haven't been having fun. And I'm not sure why. Maybe just because my existing processes got shattered. Also, tank items feel kind of busted, but not fair sample size. And then I said, well, what is it you enjoyed about Jungle last season compared to this preseason? And he says, now I'm jabbing, I'm poking here. And now he's actually breaking it down, saying, well, it's probably just that I'm uncomfortable with the new pacing. I feel like regardless of my early game choices, games aren't feeling in my control. And that's probably because I'm making poor choices and I'm not recognizing them. And also because I'm playing low intensity games, which feeds above the feelings, because I'm not sure I can answer your question in a logical manner, Nathan, at this point. So, you can tell, and I said, this is probably all of the above reasons. Like the game, especially if you're playing with a small sample size, if you play League for 3 days and you lose every game, suddenly League doesn't matter, process, or you can lose track, you can lose sight because you lose perspective going on from your topic, because you can be like, Curtis and Nathan's process, fuck that. I've just lost three blocks in a row. This is a shit game, right? It's so easy to, but you got to bring it back. Big picture. Why do you play the game? Why do you enjoy the game? Because guess what? Any game ever can look like the worst game ever. I'm sure the new Call of Duty or whatever that's come out, people are saying that there's all these attachments or whatever or something like that. I don't actually know, but any game can feel that way. Like that makes the game good.
You're absolutely spot on here. And this actually segues into one of the topics I wanted to talk about perfectly. I think this goes absolutely perfectly. I got sent by Daniel a beautiful segment of the Andrew Huberman podcast talking about dopamine release. And this was fascinating, Nathan.
I love Andrew Huberman. We've talked about him a lot on the podcast before.
Yes, big fan.
He's got a podcast on YouTube. Just type in Andrew Huberman. Huber.
Really, really good stuff. Man. World class. And so basically, I might butcher this a bit, but I'm going to have a crack because I don't have all the technical words. But essentially, this was... So obviously we know dopamine to be something that really helps us with focus and energy. Like I think it's actually a precursor to another chemical reaction or something like that. But basically dopamine allows us to stay focused for long periods of time. Without it, like we actually can't focus. Like if we don't,
super important.
It's very, very important, right? And so if your dopamine is centered around, or dopamine release is centered around achieving an end result, what actually happens is that the dopamine release gets really screwed up over time. So basically, he says it in a much more articulate way, but you can actually retrain your brain to release dopamine while focusing on the process via the result.
Got it.
So what happens is that dopamine naturally is released, especially for most people that have a fixed mindset, is actually purely like the mechanism is released via results. So you think, hey, I want to
let's say I'm getting to Diamond 4.
That's right.
Every time that you win a game, that's going to be insane dopamine. And when you lose it, it's going to be opposite. But what we want to get to is that you're just showing up for that 3 block. You finished the 3 block. It was pretty shit, but you reviewed and you're happy with the reviews.
The danger,
that's the way you don't get the dopamine.
The danger with going for the result is that sometimes it can be delayed for a very long period of time. And then what actually happens, it says to the brain, is that if I'm not getting this release, and if I'm not getting it, it will actually give up. And it won't give it won't give you the dopamine
So if you
anymore.
keep fat, you can't get to Diamond 4.
And then what happens? That actually reduces your level of focus because again, you're not getting that dopamine release, and then it just completely screws your whole dopamine cycle. And so you won't get the release of the dopamine, which will actually inhibit your levels of focus.
If it takes too long to get to that goal.
That's right. And because for most people, it's like, I need to get a 3.0 block or I need to get to that rank. But we know that most results worth achieving that give you that dopamine aren't going to happen overnight.
It takes ages.
It takes ages. If you set it on the goal rather than the process, the actual...
you just give up.
Yeah, the dopamine, the brain just basically breaks down. It says like, well, I'm not getting the dopamine or whatever. And so it just doesn't work, right? And then actually it lowers your focus, your intensity, and then it's just like a toxic cycle. So what actually happens is that you can retrain your brain to give you dopamine via the process. And the way you got to do that is because it's actually not an emotion. It's not actually intuitive. You got to use your prefrontal cortex, logical part of your brain, to convince yourself that the process is the reward. That's what the growth mindset is all about. The growth mindset is this process, what I'm doing in this game, this review, is equally important, if not more important than the result. And if you actually tell yourself this, like literally logically, like after the game, you remind yourself, okay, 3-block method, the reviews of the medicine, this is how I learn. If I learn, I'm going to get better. And if I get better, that's going to get me the results. If you kind of like step that out in your brain and you keep doing that and you convince yourself that the process is the most important thing, you can retrain. So you can actually stay focused for mass periods of time, because the dopamine will get released over the process.
That's where we're at. We can chip away. We don't get bored of
That's right. We don't get bored. Our focus levels are so high. That's why we can get into the view consistently, because we've actually subconsciously trained our brain to stay focused for long periods of time because of that. And that's why people ask, Curtis, how do you and Nathan play for league every season? You know, do this every single week, because we understand it's just in part of our mentality, our approach to the process. We know that is the only way to get better reliably over the long run. So we've done this sort of subconsciously. We've retrained our brain to release dopamine in this way. And so it shows the danger. This is actually the chemical danger of a fixed mindset and having a focus on results, and why burnout happens. And this is actually the reason why burnout happens in the real world. So he actually spoke about how people who you work a 5-day week, the grind 5-day week, and then you the whole work hard, play hard mentality, where it's like you get the dopamine on the weekend. That what actually happens over a long period of time, it actually causes burnout, because the dopamine release is it's the quote unquote result, the end.
At the weekend.
So what actually happens?
You would be screwed.
That's right. During the week, you're screwed, and you can use sheer like willpower and motivation to overcome that 5-day work with, or coffee. But what happens is that actually ruins the dopamine receptors or whatever, and it burns out to the point where you get your dopamine gets completely. You actually like lose dopamine completely, and then the actual process is ruined. And so that's why people have insane burnouts. If you're like, those bankers that work like 5 days a week for like years, they have this massive burnout, and the crash, that's why. This is the chemical explanation for why.
Do you have the clip?
Yeah, I have the clip. Daniel sent it to me.
Can you make a note, Charles, to put this in the description of YouTube?
Yep, I'll send this to Charlie and he can put that in the description.
You got to write it down, Charles.
And this is going to be Charlie's accountable here, so we put it on the podcast. So if it's not there, then Charlie's going to get roasted. So yeah, I thought this was fascinating because it explains now why focus is trained through this mechanism.
It's not something you wake up with like, I'm going to focus now. I mean, you can do that short term.
Yes, willpower is short term.
Long term, it will.
It doesn't work.
Yeah.
So that's also the importance of perspective as well, because your perspective on the process is literally important, like chemically important.
Because whenever league does become unfun for us. Sometimes we do hate the game in short periods, but this just overrides it because we just know it's like, okay, this is just part of it.
Bring it back to that. Yeah.
Bring it back to that. But my Soul 2 member Richard there, that conversation, he's obviously not thinking longer term, bigger picture. It's just the game. 10 games, game sucks.
The other thing was, so we're reading a book at the moment called Mind Wise. And essentially the book is about like training your mind to look at the world through understanding people better. Like, how can I read the mind of someone I'm having a conversation with, essentially, right? And basically in this book, he talks about a lot of situations where people failed to to kind of change the perspective and look at the world through that person's lens. And basically the interesting thing I've taken away from this book is that, so this happens a lot, like he says politically. So if someone say, what do they call it in America? Like they have the right and the left or whatever. Is that conservative or Republican, Democrat, right? So what actually happens is that if you're talking to someone that is on the opposite side politically, he talks about how you actually don't see the world through their view, and a part of your brain won't get engaged. So it's actually, you fail to be able to resonate with that person and understand why they're saying what they're saying, because there's actual a part of your brain that is
like blocking.
It's literally blocking it because we're so egotistical. We only can our natural inclination is to only resonate with people that are like us. And when someone isn't like us and we don't see ourselves like them, it's very easy to just think they're lower than us, they're stupid, they're silly.
Anything they're saying, there must be some explanation why it's wrong.
And we're right, they're wrong. Yeah. That's the baseline assumption, right? And so when I hear a lot of the time these stories, I can actually feel my default instinct response, I don't resonate with this person. And I've actually realized what I've had to do, what I think we've had to do is train ourselves to see, okay, if I'm that person saying that thing, how would I have to be viewing the world? Like if I were to queue up as that person with that mentality, what could possibly contribute to that? How could they be thinking about the game? What's their relationship with the game like? So what I'm trying to do a lot of the time, what we need to do is humanize and really, really look at the world through their lens. And that's, in a way, what you've done is kind of, you tried to bridge that gap by asking questions to be like, to get them to probe more and be more inquisitive. I think another way of doing that is, okay, say to yourself, okay, if I had these thoughts, how would I be viewing solo queue? What would my experience look like? What would my reviews likely look like? How would I be thinking about the game? And then suddenly you're able to really, really resonate with them a lot more and actually kind of give them better advice. Because sometimes I feel like my default response back in the day was I would actually give shit advice because the advice, I don't know what it's like to be them. I don't know I don't understand how you would have that mentality. You have to go out of your way to actually engage a whole nother part of your brain by asking those.
It takes lots of effort to.
It takes a lot of effort.
Unblock that part.
Because we're so egotistical.
The key word is curious. You have to be genuinely
curious.
Yeah.
How could I possibly, what would it be like to have that mentality? How could that mentality be created? How would I view the world if that was how I was viewing things? And then it starts to make sense, doesn't it? It makes sense why it'd be difficult to get in the review. It makes sense why you wouldn't want to look forward to your 3 block. It makes sense why you get burnt out or it makes sense why you want to change your champ pool. It suddenly all starts to click.
It does. I think for us as well, since we play the game so much, I can relate a lot to my Soul 2 members because I've gone through, especially the Platinum 1 to, because I struggled in the whole Platinum 1, D4, D3. I did all that, been there, done that. So I can definitely resonate with specific things, but I had to get really genuinely curious, for below that, because I wasn't this, I didn't view the gaming background was a big one, that we figured out over time. Your gaming background can literally skyrocket you very quickly, but if you haven't played PC games, you play console, you haven't never played a MOBA, from their lens, their view, even using the mouse and everything, it's going to be very difficult, and we need to compensate, empathize for that, or putting themselves.
Well, that's actually why I think we probably fundamentally struggle to teach. We would struggle to teach bronzes.
Yeah, that's right.
And like low silvers and bronzes, because if there is an extremely, like no gaming background person, right, that joined the Salts or the MLA, it's very difficult for us to give advice. Because we don't know what that's like. I genuinely don't know what it would be like to have League as your first game with no gaming background and being stuck in bronze.
That's right.
It's very, very, very hard for me to think about what that would be like. So hence why I wasn't able to give that advice. So I've actually got someone like that in the MLA. And it wasn't me who gave the bot advice. It was someone else.
Someone else who figured that out.
Someone else in the MLA, Peter, gave her that advice. That didn't come from me. Why? Because it's actually very difficult for me to resonate. I try my absolute hardest, but it's like a completely different person, like, to me, very, very, very different background.
Because it's not your journey. It's not
my journey at all.
No.
And I spot on. I resonate with people that have had similar journeys. Yeah. But I think that what was interesting, what I've taken away from the book, is that it's very easy to immediately write someone off as wrong or weird or just like me. Because I'm more familiar with my journey, so I automatically think that my journey is the way things should be done.
Yeah,
but that's just bullshit. It's just egotistical to think that.
Because I guess it worked for me, so why shouldn't it work for you? That's
exactly.
Like the ego,
which is just ego talking at the end of the day, and it's a lack of curiosity. It's important to be aware of that. Yeah.
All right, mailbag time.
Not bad.
Away we go. Jingle song. Alrighty then, our first email here is from Raj. The title of this email is BBC Philosophy Mirrored in Medical Training. Maybe we should start up, Curtis, a medical training podcast.
That sounds like a terrible idea.
You don't think we, as someone who hasn't gone to any formal education for medical training?
We start up a clinic.
A clinic, yeah.
We can be the local Melbourne Soliloquy Clinic.
Soliloquy Clinic. Dear Curtis and Nathan, I'm a third-year medical student in the United States and a long-time casual LoL player. I only just started picking up the actual craft of the game in the last year or so. I was listening to episode 121 and was particularly struck by the discussion on one student's feeling of a lost game being time wasted. In many ways, the situation mirrors challenges in my own education, and I thought your listeners might benefit from the comparison. In order to start seeing patients in the hospital, med students are required to pass the US medical licensure exam, step 1. It is an 8-hour exam that is generally considered the single hardest examination for physicians in the US. Students generally take 2 to 3 months off from class to study for step 1. The standard prep book for this exam is 900 pages long. All material, no questions, and only covers the most high-yield information, nowhere near the entire content of the exam. All this is to say that the exam tests infinitely more information than one could possibly memorize. So how do students pass? Pattern recognition formed through countless hours of practice. Practice questions are universally accepted to be the best way to study for step 1 exam. The gold standard question bank is 4,000 questions, and many students try to complete 1, if not 2, full passes of this Q bank. When studying, we generally complete 2 times 1 hour 40 question blocks in a row, and then spend the rest of the day going over questions and all of the material they contain. If this 2-hour block of intense practice and subsequent lower intensity reviews sounds similar to 3 blocking, that's because it is. So it sounds like they 3 block these 2 1 hour 40 question blocks. I did not consistently pass my blocks until practice exams until I was 3,000 questions in. At 80 questions a day with 6 hours of review afterwards, 6 days a week, this means I spent 6 weeks doing nothing but failing full time. 8 hours a day. Again, if this vaguely sounds like someone grinding their heart out and being hard sucking silver, that's because it does. The only way to keep up my morale was to trust the process. I kept at it, took good care of myself with diet and exercise, and one day I just started consistently passing blocks. I had finally accumulated enough experience from my brain to effectively intuit answers. So I think he's talking about intuition at that point. Patterns became appearing everywhere I looked, and my knowledge base really solidified. I took the real exam shortly thereafter and passed. Albeit, and on a much rigorous level, pretty much everything I did resembles the fundamental strategies you coach for league, which just goes to show the excellent basis for your teaching. You're literally teaching the same strategies thousands of doctors around the world would employ for their training. With enough practice, whether successful or not, an excellent review, the human mind will form connections and identify patterns. Whether this is for consistently identifying autoimmune conditions in pregnant women or consistently identifying when you're likely to get ganked in mid lane, it holds true. Keep up the great work, and I'll be making it to gold next season.
Wow. I mean, I don't really know much about what it takes to become a doctor. All I know, it's incredibly difficult.
For that one
I didn't know it
exam.
was like that.
That's crazy.
That's unfathomable to me. You know, when people think it's unfathomable to get Challenger, like that, I just can't. I mean, it takes a very certain type of person to become a doctor, and it makes sense why, you know.
I'm happy because I want my doctors to be this well trained.
I agree. I think that it's good that this practice is there. But I mean, first thing I want to say is appreciate him writing in such an amazing email and sharing that insight, because don't really know much about that. Secondly, this is so many things I want to talk about in this one, because this is exactly what I covered in my video that I just released, all about intuition. So if you haven't watched it, Raj, I released a video on my YouTube talking about improving intuition. Many of the things that you just mentioned there, I go deeper on that in my video. But the key of it is reps and good quality reviews, and I get into that. I took inspiration from a video I got linked from a competitive programmer named Colin Galen on YouTube. And he has a video also on intuition, and he actually describes it very similarly. So in the programming competitions, the questions are so difficult, and you don't know what they're going to be, and you have to solve the problem so fast that it's not possible to do it with the logical part of your brain. Yeah. It's just not possible. Like you have to intuit the answers. You have to intuit the solutions, because the way they work is that it's based off time, how quickly it takes you to solve that problem. And the only way to solve problems that fast is to have the information intuitively embedded into your mental stack, right? And the way he got this good, this was like the rank 1 guy, like he's in the top tier of the competitive programmers, is he basically would do what you did. He would do a shit ton of problems, and then he would look at all the answers. He would do shit ton of problems and then have a crack, and then he would sometimes you just look at the problem, then look at the answer, and he would do it again: problem, answer, problem, answer, problem, answer. And what he was doing is over time building his intuition and vague understanding of what was going on. And so over time, by doing this a lot, you would start to get an idea of the structure of the problem. Be like, oh, that's one of those problems. You'd be able to figure out a rough structure. And that's exactly what we do in league. What you do in league how we do our reviews and high elo plays especially, what you're doing is that you're playing with intuition. Most 90% of it is played with intuition. And then in the review, you're going to those moments that were confusing. You're looking at what happened, breaking it down quickly, coming up with a solution, and then boom, next, go again. And because the situations you're in are actually so similar, like the example I use is that if you play 400 Victor games, high intensity Victor games across 3 seasons, I guarantee you would have a very sophisticated understanding of 2v2s, your limits in 3v3s, team fights, how much threat you're under, how to approach different situations with the different champions. It would just all be plug and play without even realizing you've made all these connections and your ability to make instantaneous decisions without even realizing. You just feel that that's what you got to do. because the brain is an amazing pattern recognition tool.
Incredible.
I want to quote this is actually just based off memory from the book we've been reading, Mindwise. There was this guy, he said that this was one of the most famous experiments ever done. He believes one of the most amazing experiments ever done. So basically what they did was they got people to look at, I think it was like a bunch of circles, like of differing shapes and sizes. And then like some were large, some were really small, and then he had to look at them. And then what they had to do, I think they had to like recall, like a specific circle from the pattern or whatever it was. And what they realized is that it wasn't possible for the human mind to like logically kind of remember like what was there, because it was too much information. It was like information overload. But then what they found was that the human mind was the circle, because they had to guess the size or whatever it was. The size that they chose was the perfect estimation of the average of the sizes of the circles.
That's insane.
And this wasn't via using logical thought at all. No. Just your brain intuitively gauge what the average size of the circle was. And it was like just like basically perfect. Taking the average of the small ones and the large ones, and like the other medium size, all these other ones, and the brain was able to measure what the average size of the circles were in that situation, with all these circles going around everywhere. But you do that without thinking. That's just your brain is able to just do that. It's just effortless. So the way he describes the intuition and the brain is like we're really good at we kind of like, he talks about it in reference to stereotypes, how we can put ourselves in a lot of situations. That's actually how stereotypes are created. And he believes that stereotypes can be very negative because you can't apply them to every situation, but you can use it as a good, like generally there is an element of truth in there, right? With stereotypes. And so you can't completely rule out a stereotype because they're there for a reason, because humans are so good. You put in so many different situations, they're there for a reason. So more often than not, the stereotype is actually true, but you still can't apply that stereotype to a specific situation. Use it as a general rule of thumb. That's a bit of a tangent, but my point being is that intuition is fascinating, and the crux, and then learning how to improve your intuition via the process I talk about in my video, is actually the essence of getting good at the game. And lastly, this is why the best pro players are the ones that were able to play a shit ton of games and just put themselves in so many situations. And the players that made it were the ones that had the best intuitive pattern recognition, and the ones that were able to like, for example, Faker being able to like understand intuitively, okay, that was the best play, that didn't work, boom, 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 boom. Now, because this process hasn't been kind of like codified or in a way or solidified, it's now basically been dumb luck, whoever's got the best natural talent, intuitive process. But now we're understanding, we're at the forefront of figuring out what improving intuition looks like in League of Legends. Then in the future, across the next 10, 20, 30 years, as people figure this out, you could streamline this process and you could actually overtake people by getting better at improving.
Overtake the naturally talented people.
Exactly, because that's what a large part of natural talent is, by the way. Natural talent, a large part of it is you have so much embedded curiosity and so much embedded free flow nature that you're able to just go through, play heaps of situations, not get mental blocks, and just keep playing and learn and play and learn and play and learn without getting caught up on bullshit. Like that's a large part of what talent is, in my opinion, and being able to improve that pattern recognition. So it's a big tangent, but I love this topic, and I think it's the future of League of Legends, improvement in League of Legends.
It's basically breaking down where you need to get to. And it's so similar to this medical exam thing, right? I love the part that I want to take from that email is that imagine how demoralizing failing for 2 months straight. Like you think there's no hope. And then the last month things are starting to click. And then that's exactly how it is for League. I know going back to my 2 seasons, right? 2020, I finished Master Tier 0 LP. 2021, I finished Diamond 1 10 LP. And then last year I finished 850 LP Challenger. That's because all that intuition I built, again, it's the same thing. If I think about those 3 years and those 3 months, 2 months, I technically failed. And then the last month, everything started to click. All the intuition I was building up, it looked like it was failure, looked like I should have given up and, I'm just a bad player, but it clicks.
And yeah, 100%. And I would say what I love from this one is that it's like you don't know you're improving.
That's the thing. That's why you have to trust the process.
You have to just trust the process because you don't know when it's going to click. And the way I view it, right? This is like if there's a physical, say people like are very physical learners, right? Visual learners. I view it as like like an electrical circuit. And how like all it takes is one piece missing for the current not to go through the electrical circuit. What you're doing within building intuition is that because League, all the skills are interconnected. For the sake of jungle, you could have like good champ mastery, have a feel over your abilities and stuff. But if you don't know how to read waves, lane states and lanes, nothing will click. Like the ganks won't be reliable and consistent over the long run. But you're just missing one thing. My point being is all it takes is one skill to be missing for the whole thing to crumble.
Yep.
And in mid lane, that is very, very obvious. Like some people, they just miss the leaning aspect. They might have everything else, but they don't do the warding, whatever it might be. Because the skills in League are all interconnected.
Yeah, for jungle, it's one bad gank can throw off the entire game. Completely different game you're changing. Just one gank.
Yeah.
And that's because you missed one thing. That's it.
Maybe your camera painting's not there.
Yeah.
That's it. If you can have everything else, but your camera painting's bad, it won't click.
As simple as your mid laner is
Done. Not looking at resources properly.
Yep.
And that's the beauty of League. All the concepts are interconnected. That's why you don't know when something's going to click because we're not able to see what skills you do and don't have. Like I view it as like we can't open the hood and assess like what's going on in there.
It has like all these ticks and it has like percentages of like how well and look at the consistency of all the things.
That's why League is such a hard game.
That's right.
Because we don't know how where you're at essentially, which is so cool. You just got to trust it. Yeah,
love it.
Really, really awesome.
This is why our listeners we got the best community in League. I always say that. Look at these quality of these mailbag.
The last thing I will say here on this as well, this is why you also get a lot of value from watching people do plays done well. So say for example, you're an Aurelia player and you want to increase your skirmishing on Aurelia. You will get value and actually improve your Aurelia skirmishing by watching Aurel King. Because what you're actually able to do is you're seeing the answer. So there's a problem. It's like, how does he get out of this situation? And you see the answer. Like you're actually still getting, if you like do it with focus, you're actually paying attention. Like you're actually trying to empathize with that Aurelia play in that situation.
And you're also thinking about in that exact moment, what are you doing? What are you thinking about? And then he does something completely different. Like, oh, whoa, that's instantly a neuron connection connected there.
You know what it reminds me of? It reminds me of Richard.
Yeah.
In Direwolves back then, remember what he used to do? He was a big believer in just watching.
Yeah, he just watched.
He would watch it in bed while he's like not even focusing. He's like, I just want to watch VODs. And he would just watch like
always. The moment a scrim finished, alt tab, just watching.
I remember he would just be on his phone watching like just
watch highlights all the time.
Watch highlights. He would always watch highlights all the time. Yeah. And like, I wonder if that actually
absolutely I think it did
work for him. I mean, he was a very good player at that time.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's just funny to think about.
All right, moving on here. The next one here is from Kenny. Normals into ranked. What are the green flags? Hello, Curtis, Nathan, and Charlie. Hope you guys are doing well at the time of listening to this email. I'm just thinking out loud about the relationship between normals, and I hoped I could get some insight from my two favorite League content creators. As we know, Faker originally ended up moving to ranked because his normals MMR was so high that he couldn't get into games. The queue times were too long. There's also been many cases of individuals playing a lot of normals, then successfully transitioning into ranked where they hit the ground running. I've never heard rumors of a popular, talented mid lane Aussie content creator who did the exact same thing. On BBC episode 125, you gents talked a bit about how people should not extrapolate too much from one game of beating a high-ranked player, which makes perfect sense. My question stems from the idea of where should we begin to decipher this relationship between normals into ranked? Is it something that's confidence or process-based? For example, as long as you get to a point where you feel ready or have a process that works for you, should you hop into ranked? Or is it more of a stats gameplay based, one like in the instance of Faker where he was so good that he moved on? In short, what are the green flags when someone should theoretically hop into ranked from normals?
Well, I'll be honest. I don't think we have the answer. Like, I'm sure there is a good quality answer that exists. We just don't have enough experience with normal games, do we, to really answer that question. So I would say right now, in my current view, it has to be via feeling. Are you starting to feel like you're not really that challenged?
I would say for me, like, let's say if you never play ranked, you're in normals and you're versing. You said that one time being a high elite player. Maybe not like, wouldn't count beating the master player one in every 30 games, but if you're versing like platinum 4s like every game, or maybe like golds or something like that, and then like literally like every game you're basically playing in gold ranked or platinum ranked matches, wouldn't you say at that point it's starting to be like, okay, now I'm probably ready?
I don't know. I'll be honest, for me, like, again, it would be a feeling. Like, I don't really see the value in checking the rank.
Okay.
For me personally, I think it would be, do I feel in control of my champion? Do I feel my mental stack is freed up? Do I feel really tunnel visioned in my lane? Like, do I feel like I have to really think hard about my CSing and my trading?
But that's hard, because if you've never done it, how do you know what it feels like to be really proficient at that?
Because this is the thing, when I moved on, it was just like, I just felt like I wasn't...
You're in control of the game. Like, you weren't scared of anything.
Yeah, I was like... Because I remember for me, it was very clear. I was like, okay, when I play bots, I remember I played until it was just easy.
Easy, super easy.
And I'm bored now. Like, I need to move on.
You need a challenge.
And then I moved to normal games. And then at the start, I was struggling really hard. And then, like, I moved on from normal games when I started to feel like, again, normal games weren't that, like, challenging. Like, I mean, I was still losing, obviously, but, like...
You weren't getting dominated.
I felt in control of my champion.
You knew how to win games with it.
Yeah, I knew how to win games with my champion. That's right. And I knew what it felt like. I knew when I was strong. I knew when I was weak. I had, like, a very solid baseline understanding of what I needed to do. And it was more of a feeling. I feel in control. Like, I think that's what you're looking for. I feel like if you're feeling super tunnel visioned and everything's just really stressful, and you're not ready, straight up, in my opinion. Like, you gotta, because the whole point, you gotta remember, Nathan, in League, when you're versing better quality opponents, your mental stack is more engaged, because it's like you're having to, like, think more, and you're getting put in uncomfortable situations. When you're versing worse opponents, you understand what the situation looks like. You've had many experiences in this situation, so intuitively you're just like, oh, I've seen this before. I know how to adapt. I know what to do here. And I feel like once you've put yourself in those situations enough, and you're starting to feel really just in control, and you're ready for a challenge, that's when you go into ranked. I don't know what that is. I don't know how many games it is. I don't know what stats wise. I don't even know what that looks like. I'm sure there is, again, a very structured way to approach this, but I just think right now it's just feeling.
All right, well, here's another quick one as well about the normal games. This is a dominated normal games from Martin. Hi, Curtis and Nathan. I think that you overlook something here. First of all, that's what you said. So step 1, play bots. Step 2, dominate bots. Step 3, play normal games. Difference between blind and draft picking, you said a question mark?
I think you should do draft so you get your role.
Yeah. Step 4, dominate normal games. Step number 5, go into ranked and skip low elo iron to bronze to go straight into average rank silver gold. I found this take on dominating normals very interesting, because on bots you can define the difficulty, but when playing normals it's kind of auto-detected since it uses the MMR system. At some point, if you dominate normals, you will verse Master Plus players, and even if they won't try, they're still easy, definitely better than you. It's impossible to dominate them without playing for a long time. I think instead of getting rank 1 in normals like Faker to dominate everyone, you should stop at some point and go into ranked. Maybe you should try to play some ranked games to find out if you're ready for ranked, but how can you know that? Interested to hear your thoughts.
Again, I think it's just a feeling over champ mastery. I really do. I think it's actually all tied to champ mastery and your mental stack. Like, do you feel like in jungle, do I feel like I have the capacity to actually, like, look at lanes? Like, do I feel like I actually have do I have to stare at my character and, like, look at all my camps every single time? Or can I actually move around a bit? Do I feel like in lane, do I have to stare at my minions and see which ones are dying and like... Because again, I think you're right, Nathan. They don't know what it feels like to have a freed up mental stack. But I think if you're No, I mean, just listening to this, I guarantee you, okay, the closest one would be in a bot game, you don't feel stressed. For a lot of people, like we're talking, say, someone that's moved on from bots to normal, you know what it feels like to feel not challenged. It's like, they're not really hitting me. They're really defensive. I can just sit here and
kill
chill.
whenever I want.
That's right. That, like, I'm not saying you're not going to get to that level, of course, but like, you will still have a feeling of just like comfortability over your champion. That's what you're looking for. Because, okay, to put it really succinctly, there are two modes of learning in League, right? So oversimplifying the learning journey. You are either developing champion mastery and learning a champion, or you're learning the game. It's one or the other. We want to 110% remove learning the champion, or at least the basics of the champion. You want to have the champ mastery stuff down pat. So when you're going into ranked, we're just learning the game. We're adapting to the game. You don't want to be thinking about how do I use my abilities really well? How do I CS with my champion? When am I strong? When am I weak? When should I be fighting? Like you don't want to think about that shit.
It should be intuition.
Has to be muscle memory by then. Why would you want to learn a champion in ranked? It makes no sense.
No.
So I think that's what you're looking for.
So I think we'll keep exploring. This is obviously a new thing over the last couple of episodes.
Right.
Lots of people wrote into it, so they're really fascinated about this because there is definitely a big portion of the audience that are newer to the game or low ranked, and maybe they're in silver or bronze, and they're like, maybe I should try out this normals thing, and they're confused about like when do I, how do I know?
Yeah, I don't know. Again, we'd have to think about this some more.
And see people do it, or people in our communities do it
write
themselves.
in, let us know. Like if people are doing this and going down this journey, I would love for us, like for you guys to write in maybe 2-3 months later, and like share us your findings.
Yep. I'd love to see a group of people that have not touched ranked at all, listen to this word, thinking about going to ranked, and then they just played normal. They were about to, then they only played normals for the next 3 months, and then see what rank they are when they instantly go into gold, into ranks.
It'd be interesting.
All right, that's it for our podcast today, everyone. Good work. Let's use preseason to set us up for success in season 13 in early January. We'll see you guys next episode.